that the people who spoke to them sent reports, interacted with these three people were people with vested interest. That NGO reports were taken into consideration, and some of the UN reports the government completely disagreed with, and the investigative team took those into consideration. And also the government really never let these three people come here and engage with the government per se. So the government never submitted anything officially to the three investigators, except for the letters they sent to them saying they're not in agreement with the investigation on Sri Lanka.
That's correct. That's correct. I have to say, of course, that there was no bias. You mentioned vested interest. There were many submissions that were made, and this was a public call for submissions which was published widely, and over 180 responses were received, some of whom may well have been of a particular bias, but that was counteracted by the particular bias of others. And at every stage in the process, not only the Commission but also the experts actively sought cooperation and participation by the Sri Lankan authorities. So there's only so much you can do. This is a concession which, in your introduction, you mentioned is of benefit to the Sri Lankan economy, but clearly the Commission can only open the door. And as I've said publicly on a number of occasions, we regret and we think it was unhelpful that the government did not wish to cooperate with the investigation.
Yeah, but the government's position, even the other day, Minister G.L. Pires had mentioned the Commission was trying to use GSP Plus as a weapon against Sri Lanka. I mean, the way the government looks at this whole process is, something as if the Commission is trying to impinge upon the sovereignty of this country, that we will not be subjected to an investigation. We are a sovereign country. Why should the European Commission come and look at our human rights record? It is none of their business kind of position is what the state has been taking.
Well, of course, countries that receive GSP Plus have to apply for it. And the conditions of that application are set out in our legislation. And we are bound by our legislation. European legislation has force of law, and it is the Commission that is responsible for that, the implementation. So, the sovereignty doesn't just exist on one side. This is a unilateral concession, not a negotiated concession, a unilateral concession whose terms are clear and explicit, and under which there is provision for investigation. And this is known to all countries that apply to receive this concession. If in the event these conditions come into play, it is with the full foreknowledge of the country that voluntarily applied for these conditions.
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is, look, when we applied, we knew these eligibility criteria must be met, and then you have a problem with the eligibility criteria, you want to investigate, we are not letting you do that. But the government was saying, look, whatever we do, these people are going to come up with a scathing report on Sri Lanka.
Well, I have to disagree with that.
Right.
That the Commission and the European Union in general has a long-term relationship with Sri Lanka, which is independent of individuals. It is an institutional relationship, which we certainly wish to see go forward on a good footing. Yeah, we have no political axe to grind in that sense.
Even though the government didn't officially participate or cooperate in the investigation, on several occasions the senior government officials did informally meet with the Commission and discussed issues that were being investigated on. Is that correct?
there is a constant dialogue, but I have to come back to the question of implementation of legislation. This is a quasi-judicial process, part of a system of laws and a regulation in particular. There is no parallel process. It is the only process, and without engaging in that process, while we always welcome dialogue, without addressing the specific points and without the cooperation in that process, there is no supplementary way of doing it. There is no shortcut to it. There is the investigation.
Now let us list. I've read that long big report last night. Let us look at the main conclusions, right? Just let me read out the summaries of them. One, the legal and institutional framework giving effect to ICCPR, CAT and CRC, those are the three conventions, is not sufficient to ensure their effective implementation. One. Two, the police are unwilling or unable to investigate human rights violations. Three, torture, both by the police and armed forces, remains widespread. Four, state agents are responsible for disappearances. Of course, I'm summarizing the big conclusions. Five, serious restrictions on freedom of movement, notably among the 250,000 odd internally displaced persons in camps. And six, physical violence against journalists, undermining the freedom of expression. And they have also said, even though child recruitment was a problem, now it seems fixed. Now, Ambassador, tell me, these are huge problems. I mean, these are not problems that can be dealt with. These issues cannot be dealt with in the time that we have, which may be a month or two. So it seems to me that there is no going forward from this point.
No, I don't want to fix in stone a calendar. We have a legislative calendar. Our calendar, not so much legislative, but certainly juridical, which is fixed by the regulation. And the report has been communicated to the Sri Lankan government, and we are seeking a reaction to the report, as we have done at every step of this process. But we are time-bound, and within a few weeks the Commission must make its recommendation. Now, this is again, it's a juridical term, it's a formal recommendation